And of course, to my good friend, Akofa Ijani Asedu. Let's take this one and come back to the business of the day. Ultimate Health on Joy 99.7 FM. You know, every Sunday, 2:05, we come alive with all that impact your health and well-being.
AMG, baby.
We bring all the guests, the practitioners, the professionals
Beyond control.
to answer your questions and concerns. Today, we want to demystify DNA and paternity testing. You hear lots and loads and tons about this. So I have Seth Ajiman in the studio again. He's a deputy chief biomedical scientist, fellow of the West African College of Biomedical Science. He's also a biomedical scientist with Yemachi Biotech. So if you have any questions about DNA testing and when that is leveraged or harnessed to facilitate paternity testing, all your questions should be answered today on Ultimate Health. Seth, good afternoon and great to have you.
Thank you, sir.
Right, we're hoping to be joined. Right, you were hoping to be joined by Augustine Sego. He's the chief biomedical scientist. He's also the head of the clinical and research labs at the Ghana Infectious Diseases Center. I think that's in Gaisa.
Yes, please.
Right.
Please.
So Augustine will be joining us hopefully or shortly. But you're welcome. And last week we tried to go through the basics of laboratory testing and the importance of the medical laboratory or the clinical lab.
Yes, please.
Right. If you have any questions on that hanging over from last week, you can send them to WhatsApp 055 11 11 997. So today we are delving into DNA testing. Right. Let's do the basics first.
Yes, please.
All right. My understanding is that for every human being, you have a kind of blueprint, right, that can be verified.
Yes.
And this is what we do when we're doing DNA testing. But what is DNA, first and foremost?
Right. Thank you so much for having me
Yeah.
here on this bigger platform. It's just by God's grace that
I'm sitting here today. When you talk about DNA, DNA represents a protein we call an acid we call deoxyribonucleic acid.
Right.
Now it is building blocks made up of some chemicals that scientists give them letters like A, T, G,
Right.
C.
Okay.
Now these chemicals come together in different formats to form the signature of every living being. Let me take it to basics. For instance, those days when you buy cassette, if you buy a cassette by Nana Pedu or Daddy Lumba, there is this black string or tape inside the cassette. You put in a tape, you press play, then you hear the person who sang the song.
Right.
Now you won't put Daddy Lumba's cassette in a tape and you will hear Nana Pedu's song.
Okay.
So DNA, it's what makes every living being the uniqueness we have, our height, our stature, the way we speak, the way we reason, how we grow, whether big or small. So DNA is like the center of direction for every living growth.
Okay.
And also for death. So DNA is what tells you how you grow and how the cells also develop and how other things in our bodies coordinate to perform specific function.
Okay.
So the ability to speak is because of a message DNA gave out to form something like proteins.
Okay.
Then these proteins come together to perform a specific function depending on the size, the shape, and where the protein is.
Okay. Very well. So can I take it that DNA is like God's preloaded software operating system?
Something like that.
Right.
An incorruptible operating system.
So for each of us, we have a unique signature, if I should use your words, right?
Yes. Yes.
A unique genetic blueprint.
Yes.
Right? That can be verified.
That can be verified.
So let's just quickly hit this one. So for how long have we had this technology or this ability to verify the unique blueprint of each human being?
From ancient Greek times, there were different techniques used to verify who this person was and who that person was. Those days they were using what we call morphology, looking at the form and shape with the eyes.
Okay.
Then we moved to using lenses to magnify what it looks like.
Okay.
Then they could compare it to probably your parents. We look at your toe, they look at your parents' toe, or they look at your ear, the shape of your ear.
Right.
Some people will look at your eye, look at how you behave, and link you to. But with the adventure of biochemistry, people started learning the basic molecules of life.
Okay.
So when you take a nail, what forms nails? They realize that they are proteins.
All right.
Now these proteins, what forms them? They realize that, there were some molecules called RNA. So DNA has a little brother or a little daughter called RNA.
Right.
It is the RNA the DNA helps to make that tells the protein. Hence the evolution of all these sophisticated techniques with instruments and knowledge to be able to now spread your DNA like the way we spread cards on the table, that we can tell that your DNA is A, B, A, G, T, C, 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 whatever.
So we can look at that unique genetic formula.
We can look at your unique genetic formula. Some people call it genetic code.
Right.
What makes you at different points on your DNA. So DNA is a very long stretch of chemicals.
Right.
But there are different pieces at different points that tells different functions for each person.
All right.
And these different points can also repeat themselves at different numbers. And that makes you unique.
All right. Okay. Great. So you inherit this blueprint from your parents. Right? And that's what we're going to be tracing. We're going to take our time to understand this. We haven't gotten to paternity testing yet.
Yes.
We're understanding DNA, what it is, and what it tells us. All right? So this actually lays down your genetic footprints from that blueprint. Now, Seth, this is interesting. So there are certain things that are handed down from our parents.
Yes.
All right? And from what you're telling me, they remain fixed.
Yes.
Or immutable. They don't change.
Yes.
Okay, let me ask you this question. Because sometimes we hear things like bone marrow transplant or blood transfusion and so on and so forth. Will this not dilute, compromise, alter, edit my DNA if I've undergone any of these processes?
Okay, thank you so much. So, as I said, the DNA is the smallest unit of life that tells who you are.
Okay.
Now, when it comes to bone marrow is a tissue or an organ made up of different tissues. Now, let me take it from basics. Now, these chemicals come together to form the DNA. The DNA tells the RNA to form proteins. Now, proteins in proteins in reaction to other molecules in the body will make who you are
Right.
to become what we call a cell.
Right.
Then different cells come together to form what we call tissue.
Right.
So blood is a tissue. Now everybody's blood is made up of the DNA that tells the making of the blood. The blood is also made up of many cells. Now bone marrow transplant is just to make your system to produce certain tissues or cells that probably you don't have, or you have but you're producing something that is not right. So it's just replacing the wrong one you have with the right one. It does not change your genetic code.
Right.
Who you are still maintains. So every cell in every living being has this genetic code. So when we take my hair has everything that is made up of me.
Okay.
My nail will have everything that's made up of me. But transfusion or transplant, blood transfusion is a type of transplant.
Right.
All these are just to correct pathological defects that could be due to a damage on your DNA. Hence, you are not producing what you were supposed to produce. So then we are correcting what you are supposed to produce.
But your original
DNA will still be
remains
there.
the same and it remains detectable.
Remains detectable.
Okay. All right.
Hence, we can find out that, at this junction at Kokomlemle, your DNA is replaced by Joy FM.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. Great stuff. We're learning about DNA and we'll be moving to paternity testing. Ajingo Intema is already there. Good afternoon, Nortey. Please quickly ask for me what happens before one's DNA results be negative, even if the man happens to be the real father of the child. Ajingo Tobo. That's why we're laying the principles step by step. So it's important to understand these things. Take your time and you'll get to understand it. You have a predetermined building block that can be assessed by the biomedical scientist. That's why he's in the studio. Now, we're understanding what that means first and foremost before we use it to determine paternity or anything else. Right. Now, we've just been joined by Mr. Augustine Sego. He's the head of the clinical and research labs at the Ghana Infectious Diseases Center in Ghana East. He's also a chief biomedical scientist. And last week, you may recall that Seth was humbly referring to his mentor. So today, his mentor is in the studio with him. Mr. Sego, you're most welcome. Thanks for joining us. Right? Okay. Right. His mic is yet to be activated. But let me come back to the thing. So can you tell my listeners, this means that I inherit... Of course, if we come to chromosomes and so on, we know, or I know, all right, that we inherit 23 chromosomes from our father and 23 from our mother, making 46, right? But because you said this is the key building block, which means if my father or my mother have some latent defect for some disease or some condition, it may mean that I've inherited that as well. Is that right?
Yes. Yes. That is why in Chi we say, on se wonia or se wosin. If he doesn't look like his father, he looks like his mother.
Okay.
So every offspring or every child that is born, whether by human being or by animal, is made up of what is in the mother and what is in the father. That's why two same sexes cannot give birth.
All right.
Now, before a child is formed, something in a man, my 46 chromosomes, will make another copy of one of my strands, or one of my 23 pairs.
Right.
The woman will also do the same.
Right.
And these are stored in the egg and in the spermatozoa cell. These ones come together and form a full human being. So it is what I have that I will give to my offspring.
Okay.
However,
I cannot give my offspring something I don't have.
Something I don't have.
Great stuff.
You can't give. However, when these two strands, 23 chromosomes, come together, they rearrange to make the offspring unique.
Okay.
So an offspring can have different rearrangement from the parent.
Okay.
But in the lab, we can tell that these particular genes came from the mother, this came from the father.
You can actually distinguish,
You can
separate
actually
these things and say this
that
came from here
from mama, this
and
is
this came from
dada,
here.
because
Okay.
they will come from a maternal line.
Okay.
Those will come from a paternal line.
Okay, great stuff. This is coming from Dagati in Dansoman Petroleum. Tune in and listening from my comfortable corner. May I ask, does DNA change with age? We've answered that already. Does your DNA change with age?
So it doesn't change, but some of the portions of DNA can be affected as you are aging because mutations. You could come into contact with a lot of things that could knock things out.
Okay.
But maybe where we are getting to the paternity side, there are certain portions of your DNA that remain intact.
Okay, great stuff. If you just joined us, this is Ultimate Health on Joy 99.7 FM every Sunday, 2:05. We are live with all the important, pertinent, up-to-date, precise, accurate, unassailable health information. And we bring in the best professionals. With me in the studio, breaking down DNA. Actually, that's what we're doing. Breaking down DNA, I have Mr. Augustine Sego. He's a chief biomedical scientist. He's also the head of the research and clinical lab at the Ghana Infectious Diseases Center. But we are not talking about COVID, right? We're talking about DNA. Mr. Sego, you're most welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Right. You guys don't look like you twiddle with serious things in the lab at all. Yeah? You just look like me, a lay person. But it's great to have you. So we're understanding DNA. And so it means we can do DNA testing even before we get to paternity and other things. We can do it to find out what you are made of and also anticipate certain things in your development. Is that right?
Yes, please.
Okay.
That is what is done.
Okay.
And that is what, in essence, that is what has been the recon.
Okay.
Why now we can say that, oh, this virus is like this. This virus is from this family.
Okay.
This bacteria is from this family.
Okay.
And not the other family.
Right.
You know, at first we all were thinking that Candida were bacteria at first. But now, science have been proven by the DNA analysis of these germs, we can tell that no, Candida is from a separate from the bacteria.
Okay, so we can determine these categories and classes, indeed, trace you all the way back. Let me ask you this, because I know there's an area where there's ancestry tracing.
Yes.
People can sit in the US and suddenly find out that I have descendants in Sierra Leone or even Kokomemle in Accra.
Exactly.
And this is done using DNA.
Yes.
Right. This is not related to paternity, but it can now trace your lineage and where you come from.
It is the same analogy.
Right.
It is the same
The
analogy.
same thing.
Getting my DNA profile and then getting somebody's DNA profile.
Right.
I can sit down and match them.
Okay.
And when you match that, you may actually tell whether this person nears you
All right.
or not.
So you're talking there in terms of probabilities.
Yes.
And the closeness of the fit.
Exactly.
Right.
That is what it is.
Okay.
As the DNA became the recon, as I said,
Right.
now we can even try and see whether you are a brother to your sibling.
Right.
We call it siblingship testing.
Right. So we have two siblings and want to be sure
Whether
whether
they
are what, biologically siblings.
Exactly.
All right.
We
And we can
just
test
have
all
to
that.
you just have to get your father's brother. Okay. If your father is not around,
Right.
we can get your father's brother,
Right.
match it, and with the probabilities,
Okay.
get to know whether you are actually the descendants of that man who is dead or not.
Great stuff. I'm sure you probably might know the history of Joy FM. We have descendants and other things. But
Yes, we can trace.
this is getting very interesting, right? Okay. So we can trace all these things, find out where you come from by sequencing the DNA strands and matching. Right? Am I on the right track?
That's it.
Okay. So when we're working with DNA, we're looking at these patterns, these codes, and seeing where they match. And this gives us the capacity and the ability to scientifically trace backwards with a very strong degree of certainty. Right. Okay, great stuff. Joy 99.7 FM. Ultimate Health is the program. I've got questions on my WhatsApp. This one says, "Good afternoon, Nortey by nature. Please, I want to ask, at what age can one's DNA be checked?" I am Linda inside Osu, enjoying the topic. Linda, before even my guests speak, even in the womb,
yes,
prenatal.
Yes.
Right? It can be checked. Am I right?
Yes, you are right.
Right. So she's asking, at what age can you check? You give your direct response.
No, so whilst the two genes or the two pairs of chromosomes from a man and a woman comes together, at the fourth stage, when it is safe to take a sample, it can be checked. So it can be in weeks, it can be in months, or it can be a day the child is born or days after the child is born.
Right.
So it can be done from fertilization to the child is born. Just that each of them come with his own probability of getting a good sample, the risk and all that.
Okay, great stuff. I'm taking my time. I know some of you are itching for us to get to paternity, but it's important to get the building blocks. Roots before fruits.
Yes.
Right? That's what we do on Ultimate Health. So we didn't come here to play. Right? So this is serious stuff. You have a question, concern, 055 11 11 997 is my WhatsApp. Send it to me. Wherever you are, we'll trace you. We'll get it, and then we'll get my guests who are senior biomedical scientists to answer the questions without any arguments. Some of the things you see in movies and stuff, they've been embellished a bit, but we're breaking down the science of DNA testing. And let me ask this question. Maybe Augustine, I'll ask you. As I sit here, why should I be bothered about my DNA? I have a name, I have a birth certificate, I have brothers, sisters, I know them, they know me. Why should somebody be bothered or particular or concerned about DNA testing? Why do we test DNA?
Okay, Nortey, I think we should. And every science-oriented person will do that. Let me cite an example. I'm practically Fanti.
Okay.
But when somebody says he's practically something, which means that he's moved, isn't it? Yes, Kakrawom. Yes. Before I started this, I was just trying to get why my CD4, maybe Seth may tell you what is CD4 later on.
Your fighter cells.
But my CD4 is abnormally low.
Okay.
Abnormally. Normally, you may get from 600 to 1,200 cells per mil.
Okay.
But my CD4 has never gotten to 100.
Okay.
The best CD4 I had was 4 months ago, 99.
Okay.
I've never.
Right.
Since I became aware of science and that. So this were some, and my nature of, or not my nature, what I studied, my profession, aids me to follow everywhere that there's virus.
Right.
So if I don't have this kind of protection, then why do I do this? So I have to do my DNA.
To find out if
to
there's
find
a peculiar,
out whether it is something that I did or it is genetical. And when I did it and I found out, yes, it was from my mom that I picked it up. My sibling, it was just like how do you call it? Random.
Okay.
The firstborn didn't have. But
so what you're saying is that you have a unique defect, and then you've traced it and you found out that, okay, it's present in my mother, right? So I got it from my mother's side, and so on and so forth. So by testing DNA, we can find out unique things about ourselves, which
can do more,
may impact on our health and well-being.
Exactly.
And our vulnerability to certain conditions and so on and so forth.
Exactly.
Right. Great stuff. This one says, "Good afternoon, Nortey. Please quickly ask for me." Why does everybody want me to ask quickly? What happens before one's DNA results? Oh, this is the same one from Ajingo, right? He's already got into negative tests. I suspected that guy long ago. How long does a DNA test take in Ghana, and how much does it cost to run such a test? This is from Dagati, again in DC. That's Dansoman. Hello, brother Nortey. May I pose this question, though it may sound silly? I have a female dog which gets crossed or mated by other males whenever it is on heat. When it litters or gives birth, I discover the puppies take the color of at least 2 of the numerous males that mated their mother. Yes. Does it mean that all the males that crossed it fertilized her egg and made her pregnant? This is from Teacher Saddam in Bator. I was reading something about something super hyper something fecundity.
Yes.
When you can have several fertilizations and so on and so forth. So he's asking this question. Can we take a stab at it quickly and come back to track? He's trying to say that he has a female, right?
Dog.
And then when it's on heat, he gets males to come for breeding purposes. But he notes that any set he has, he sees a repetition of the colors of the different fathers that have, should I say, crossed. his female. Sorry.
So what he sees is what we call the phenotype, the physical
right.
expression.
Okay.
This could be explained by different possibilities. It could be that even one of the male dogs actually has these 2 colors.
Okay.
But one is dominant,
one is recessive. Right.
Recessive. So now it is a showing.
Okay.
All these presentations are probabilities.
Mm-hmm.
But it's difficult for you to say that anytime a female dog has sex with 2 males,
mm-hmm.
both sperms gets to fertilize the
right.
womb, which is possible anyway.
Right.
But we always say there's a
instances,
probability.
right.
One side of the probability can always happen. So it's possible that the egg is being fertilized by the 2 sperms.
All right.
And that is why sometimes you have twins, identical twins, non-identical twins.
Okay. I would say stop stressing your dog.
Yeah.
Let them marry and practice monogamy. Anyway, right, great stuff. If you just joined us, 35 minutes past the hour of 2 on Joy 99.7. Today, the 20th of February, we're talking about DNA and moving to DNA and paternity testing. So we know you inherit some of your blueprints, half from your father, half from your mother, all right? And we do come across situations where there's a need to scientifically and conclusively determine who is the father of a child, right? Paternity refers to fatherhood, right? So would I be right in leading our listeners to understand that when we say paternity testing, then we are determining fatherhood?
Yes.
Is that
always,
right?
Always the accent is on alleged.
Alleged father. Okay, until proven.
Until proven.
Chineke. So when you are doing the testing, you are testing samples and hoping to match them. Yes. But a paternity test is the test of an alleged father, which has the objective of determining whether that father is indeed
a
biological father. Okie dokie. So let's go into that area. Or are there some fundamentals about DNA that I have skipped that we need to cover before we move into paternity testing?
I think so.
Okay. So let's go into that area. All right. Okay. For many reasons, one may want to determine their paternity. Let me say that. All right. And that is done using samples taken from the person.
Yes.
Okay. Now, my understanding is that typically cheek or buccal samples are used, right?
Yes.
A sample is taken from inside your mouth, right? Let's go through the process. So we've defined what paternity testing is. How is it done?
Okay. Before I go there, let me say the first DNA test that was built in Ghana was in Kolebu.
Okay.
And through the instrumentality of Mr. Sego, let me say that he trained all of us. I never did anything like paternity testing in school.
We salute Mr. Tego.
Yes,
Mr. Sego, sorry.
So much, so one wants to do DNA test in the lab. We take samples. Now you can use blood sample, you can use the buccal sample you spoke about,
right.
We can use your nail, we can use your bone, we can use your hair. At a point, we can use something that has come into contact with your skin.
Okay.
Any source that we can find a cell, a living cell or a dead cell, that we can get DNA out of the cell can be used for DNA testing.
Okay.
So in the lab, when samples are taken, we go through a certain scientific process called extraction. We need to get the DNA outside the cell. Now, DNA in the cell is mostly stored in the nucleus. We can also have a DNA in the mitochondrion. But as we say paternity, there's also called maternity.
Right.
So when we want to do maternity, we call Y filing. maternity, we use the DNA from the mitochondrion, because in your mitochondrion, which is your powerhouse, you can only find the mother's DNA.
Okay.
So we do this extraction. Then we do what we call PCR. Now, most people are used to PCR because of COVID. PCR, we make many copies of this DNA in the lab using machines and chemicals. After that, we put it in a different machine called sequencer. So sequencer is the one that is going to spread your DNA for us to see the point.
Okay.
Now, in the DNA or paternity or maternity testing or relationship testing, we are not interested in your whole DNA, which is very long, about 3 million length. But we are interested in certain parts we call short tandem repeat.
Okay.
These are blocks of your DNA that repeat at a particular positions on your DNA loci or allelic. So we call it allelic cores. So for instance, maybe you take a gene called THO. THO is a particular gene that repeats itself at different numbers. So maybe in my mother it repeats 16 times, in my father it repeats 14 times. I will inherit these two. So that when we sequence your DNA on our machine, we use other application softwares. We call them bioinformatic tools. These are machine learning softwares that can read and make things easier for you. You can't use your eyes to see DNA. Then we can now tell that, oh, the father's DNA, THO, repeats 15 times the allele. Then the mother's is 14. When I come to the child, I must see 15 and 14. The moment I don't see one of them, then I cross it that, okay, this one might not be from the father or from the mother. Now we do all this analysis for all the genes. Then we do some mathematical models where we calculate the probability that these genes are from these parents.
So that would be the paternity
that becomes
index.
Your paternity index.
Now,
different race or different persons have different paternity indexes. Unfortunately, we don't have African paternity index. That's why it's very important that all these molecular labs coming up in Africa and in Ghana, like Yamachi Biotech Gene Lab, it's very important that we can have African true gene bank, where we can have our own database. But we always use the African American database. So we compare it to that database. Then we conclude in our results that, oh, because of these similarities, so person cannot be excluded as a biological father. We never conclude that you are the father.
It means you have and you match all the things.
You match. So you are probably the father.
You are in the domain.
It's only a court or a judicial something that will conclude that, oh, you are the father. Yes.
So we test your DNA strands and then we match the templates to see the patterns, right? And then we look at the degree of similarity or closeness, right? And therefore we are able to come up with a paternity index. Now, I read that most DNA tests will give you an index in the region of the
99.9.
Right.
9796.
So you're looking at that index to determine and report from your lab that this person is likely
to be,
and therefore you cannot exclude that person. So in layman's terms, we'd say that was a positive test. Now, where you seek to exclude that person and clinically and scientifically say this person cannot be included as a probable father or probable biological father, what exactly are you saying there, Mr. Sego?
The alleles, when you call the alleles that Tajman read about, you must find this cause. Now, instances where you don't find some, but you find others, then you have to cross-check again and calculate your probability, and you calculate your index. When the index is 0, or the index is less than that 99, you can actually conclude that if it's 0, you can. That one said we don't conclude.
Right.
We say.
You report.
We report as.
All right. This is what you found.
Yes.
Okay. And scientifically, that suggests or indicates that this person is not likely.
It's not likely.
When they check over a million of persons, this person is likely not to be part or not to be biologically sharing information.
So essentially, I brought in somebody who's supposed to be related to me.
Exactly.
Biologically. You've tested and you're saying his relationship to me is like any other person on the street.
Yes.
He's not related to me. Right? And you've tested a sample taken from the father or alleged father and a child.
Yes.
Okay? So we can have that testing done for a father and a child.
Yes.
Right? Without doing the mother.
Yes.
Right? And that determines paternity.
Yes.
Okay. Right. If you've just joined us, 43 minutes past the hour of 2 on Joy 99.7 FM. We're looking at biological pink sheets here. Right. And I've got my electoral commissioners in the studio in the persons of Seth Ajiman and Augustine Sego. They are senior biomedical scientists, right? And they are in this business and we're trying to explain it. I'm going to activate the phone line shortly. Let me clear my WhatsApp console first. Linda Inosu. Linda likes. She wants to know what the CD4 is, right? We'll get to that. And how easy everybody's interested in the cost of DNA in Ghana. It's available in Ghana. Let me clarify that. But people want to know the cost, right? Quickly, good afternoon, Nortey. Can I just go to a lab for a DNA on a condition? Or should I be referred by a doctor? This is from Grace. Hang on to that. This one says, good afternoon. Really enjoying the program. Trust issues invariably have been a major source of controversy in many matrimonial homes. 1, is it true that a couple may never produce a child because of mismatched chromosomes? Right? Their ability to have children. I think he's talking about fertility or compatibility when it comes to producing children. 2, is facial semblance the sure way of guaranteeing paternity? From what we're hearing, If you want to conclusively know that, you must go into DNA testing. And this is from, okay, there's no name there. Thanks for sharing. Can a baby have DNA from 2 fathers? And whose gene is the strongest? The father or the mother, right? Do you get stronger chromosomes from your father or your mother? You get 23 in terms of number from
23,
each.
23.
Right? He's asking, would you get stronger DNA blueprint from your father or your mother? No.
None of them is stronger.
None of them is stronger.
Right.
None of them is lesser.
Okay.
It's the phenotype.
Right. Okay.
The physical appearance.
Okie dokie. Nortey, I know a man who got burnt and had scars. When the wife gave birth, all the scars on the father's face were on the baby's face. Please explain how. Why? Like the vice president would say, you and I were not there.
Yes.
I don't know if my guests have anything to say on this. Superficial scars.
No, these are not
nothing.
your DNA.
These are phenotype.
Charlie, Saddam, I'll come to Bato so we look into this one then. Right, my phone line 0302-216-541, Ultimate Health on Joy 99.7 FM. We've gone into DNA testing, paternity testing, and my guests have broken it down. I hope it's broken enough for you to be able to digest. But the phone line is open and active, 0302-216-541, Ultimate Health on Joy 99.7 FM. With me, Nortey by nature. I'm sure my nature is deep. DNA related there. But call us and ask your questions yourself. All right. So you can exclude an alleged father, right? And then I need to ask this question. I know there are home kits. You can test your DNA at home now. They are available, and for certain circumstances and scenarios, they are acceptable. When it comes to legal determinations, right, what is the criteria or what is the requirement? Can you do a home test and say, oh, you get out of my house, you're not my son?
Oh, so you can do a home sampling. So
Okay.
you can take your own sample. In the advanced world at US and UK,
Okay.
you could buy the kit and take your own sample
All right.
and send it to
And
the
ship.
lab.
All right.
Then the lab will do the test and conclude and give you your results. That is called self-testing.
Okay.
Or walk-in testing.
All right.
So walk-in testing, you are responsible for the sample.
You are responsible for
So
sample
if
taking.
you take your own sample and you bring it to the lab and we do the test under the father, you cannot tell
Okay.
the lab that the test is wrong or
Right.
right. So those ones are there, working sample. Working testing, they cannot use it, or it's not admissible in court because it wasn't sanctioned by a legal instrument for you to do. Second, there was no witness and all that. So you can do your own sampling and send to the lab, but it must be a sampling kit that is approved by the
and
lab,
accredited.
The lab is using and all that. So
something I was going to come to. Right.
Ghana, we are yet to get to that point where you could go and buy your own kit and take your own sample. But you cannot use such a result in the court of law to prove or disprove otherwise.
Okie dokie. Nortey, this DNA thing is not reliable. I'm inclined to believe maybe we, the human beings, are so corrupt. I am saying this because I know people who did this DNA test for paternity, which you could see clear features of a son and a father, but the test came out negative. Or say no, but the software was different, right? Rendering so many women single mothers. What could be wrong? Where can we do this test? This is from Mike in Adenta, raising some skepticism about the accuracy and the validity of these tests. The person has my nose, my forehead, my bow legs, and you say what?
Okay, not
right?
That one I could really debunk that by saying that, do you know for sure that resemblance come with the relationship of the person?
All right.
If right now, if I should live with you for 2 years, and somebody that knows us living together, when the person sees me,
that's nasty.
What's that, Mr. Segu?
What I say, what's that?
I have a caller on the line. Let me go onto the phone line. Hello, good afternoon.
Hello, boss. Good afternoon. Hope you're doing well.
Yes, I didn't go. One question quickly.
Yes, sir. Is it true that what we consume, especially the type of food and drinks that we consume, can change our DNA?
Not true.
It's not true.
Bye-bye.
Okay,
so they can't change, but they can alter the function of the things the DNA produces.
Yes.
So,
every topic we do, Ajingo will ask whether something you eat will change it. Ajingo, a lawyer. Ajingo, the man. But we love him. We love him. We love him. 0302216541. Those are the buttons to push. Okay. Accreditation, right? Who certifies a lab to be able to conduct this? We know in the past we were taking samples to South Africa and other places. Now it's available here. And so how would we know a facility is accredited to do these processes?
Well, usually if you go to the Registrar General or the Health Regulatory Authority, HEFRA, you'll be able to know which facilities are accredited to perform what tests. But when it comes to paternity testing, I think we haven't gotten to the stage where we get licensing from probably the security. Because in Ghana, for instance, the CID that has a forensic lab that does paternity testing. You have other private labs that also do. You have Trust Hospital, Kolebu used to do. Unfortunately, we're not doing it any longer. But you could find out from Health Regulatory Authority or find out from...
But it has to be accredited.
It has to be accredited.
Right. But let me say this in here that when you set up your machine to do it, any court of law will have to get the code of that machine internationally.
Right.
So that code will be used,
can be traced, right,
when your test becomes
a subject
arguable.
of law.
Yes.
Or a subject of contention. In law. Okay. Right. Okay. So you have a unique code for your equipment.
Every equipment that does DNA in the world,
right,
have a unique code.
All right, great. DNA testing. There was this is from Dede in Maryland. There was a documentary on a lady who applied for government assistance, and upon DNA testing, she was told her 2 children were not a genetic match with her, and therefore biologically she could not be their mother. Further detailed testing finally revealed she was. She went through a lot. Interesting and revealing. This is from Dede, right? I'm sure there'll be details there. Let me quickly take a caller on the line. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Right, who am I speaking to and where are you calling from?
This Bishop from Asante Mampo.
Right, Bishop, you are welcome.
Nortey, how are you?
I'm doing fine, no. I'm testing DNA here, but it's a bit shaky in the studio.
The question I'm going to ask,
it's also a bit shaky. May I know whether a woman who has a number of relationships, or maybe one or two, okay, let me take it, a relationship before entering into marriage, the relationship before, if they have any sexual intercourse, does it change? I mean, does that woman be having the traces of that man's DNA in her?
All right. Okay. So prior intimacy, does it transfer, download another person's DNA?
Some spiritual
though you have not had any child or issue.
Yeah.
Right.
I know some spiritual persons say when you have affair with somebody, the person's spirit lives in you. But DNA is not spirit. DNA are chemicals.
Right.
And somebody's DNA cannot just be inserted into your DNA unless it is by infection or purposely inserted in science.
All right. Good afternoon, Nortey. I had a scar when I was 10 years old. I gave birth to my daughter at age 17 years. She also has a scar at the same place. I kept wondering why.
So those are beyond paternity testing. These are different fields of analysis where they do what they call phylogeny. They want to find out where you got that gene from and all that.
All right. Most of my listeners want to know where they can get DNA testing done in Ghana. I did some research. I saw a facility called Blueprint or something DNA. Right, and I've seen a couple of adverts here as well. Yeah, where can we get it done?
A couple of labs that say they do paternity testing, but as far as I'm concerned, Trust Hospital Specialist Lab has the equipment and they do the test here locally in Ghana.
Okay.
Gene Lab, Molecular Diagnosis at East Legon also has the equipment here in Ghana.
Okay.
Yamachi is yet to acquire their sequencing machine and hopefully could go into that. But
okay,
there are other labs and persons who take samples and send them to other international labs in US and India, and they can get your results to you.
How much does it cost to do a DNA test in Ghana?
From what I've seen, roughly between 2,500 to 3,000, you should be able to do a DNA profile of 3 persons, mother, child, and alleged father.
Okay. Between how much?
2,400 and 3,000.
Right.
Very, very cheap.
How long does it take to get your results, typically?
Typically, a test can be done in a day.
Right.
We could do the test for you in a day and produce the results in 1 day, less than 24 hours.
Right.
But DNA testing is a specialist testing.
Right.
And it needs specialist persons to test. And it needs a lot of dots and T's to cross.
Okay.
So most of the time, it is, unless legally court requires that something must be done quickly or medically, it has some medical implications.
So you want to be sure.
But usually 10 working days, you get your results.
All right, I have a caller on the line. Right, hello.
And there is...
Yeah, just a second. Hello.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon. Your name, please?
I want to know, it seems they are silent about it. I want to know how much it costs to do a paternity test. The cost.
We just said that.
And the cost. And I have another question. I grew up not knowing my father. I got to 43 years before it seems I dragged my mom into my family to tell me who my father is. And there is a drama that has unfolded. After seeing the man doesn't even remember a woman he has had intimate with before. Yeah. And my mother narrated until he mentioned the man's friend's name. And the man said, oh, if you know that. So I requested for DNA, but the man says, oh, no problem. I see a trace of you in me. But it seems whenever family members come and the man wants to introduce me to, they ask me many questions. And I've been doubting in my mind. I told the man I want the DNA to be done. I don't know whether it costs. That's why he's dragging his feet. But I want to be sure. I don't want that sympathy that, oh, he told me, even if a DNA is done and you are not my daughter, I will still take you as my daughter. And I'm doubting.
Okay.
I'm doubting as to how you can be in a relationship with somebody. And for years, you forget that, oh, this woman, I've met her before. And so I want to know how much it costs. So that I make decisions.
They said they've answered and said in the regions of 2,000 and above, between 2,000 and 3,000 Ghana cedis for a test of 3. That is a child, a mother, and a father. All right. Nortey, please, my ex-girlfriend's son resembles me. We broke up years before she gave birth. Is it possible? Yes, it is not illegal for him to resemble you. And she gave birth years after. Okay. I will not gazette that result. But from what my guests are telling me in the studio, if you have any doubts, I don't know why. Well, I was suspecting. Anyway, so these things are available, and of course, our courts are able to also use the results generated here to make determinations. Okay, just quick words as we part. So it's available here. I've seen something. Well, by way of a website of a company that says they do it in Ghana, and they says you can even bring a nail, hair from a hairbrush, and other things. I know the typical, is the buccal or the cheek swab, and then the blood-based ones. So, is it possible for somebody to take a sample of hair and things like that for DNA? Is it possible?
Yes,
it is.
You can bring the comb or the brush.
Okay.
Anything that we can get a cell from.
Right.
We can use it for paternity testing.
Okay. Almost out of time. The guys are revving up for sports and phobia and kotoko and all that. But let me ask this: do I need anybody's consent to perform or, do a DNA testing? Can I do it in secret?
No.
I can't.
Actual fact.
Okay.
Actual fact.
Mm-hmm.
You need to seek consent.
Okay.
So
Is
when
that,
you
is that
go,
a legal requirement?
that is the normal DNA paternity
Right.
testing.
Okay.
Especially the mother of the child. If
Okay.
the child is a minor.
Right.
If the child is adult and could
18.
consent on his or her behalf, the
Yeah.
child can consent.
All right.
And
But
go
a
on the
father, an alleged father,
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't,
testing. Yeah.
and I mean shouldn't,
Right.
do this test
Secret DNA testing.
without
The mother's
consent
From the mother.
from the mother.
Okay. All right. Note, gentlemen, that the term is alleged father. I
alleged.
haven't heard them use alleged mother yet, but it can come up in some
Oh, it
Yeah,
is.
we
curious
have
cases.
alleged
We
Right.
have alleged
All
mothers.
right. Okay. So you are a father until proven. You are an alleged father until proven
Proven
a
otherwise.
father. All right. On that note, many thanks, gentlemen. We will have to go into this and take more questions, right?
thank you.
On the
Yes.
process, on its availability, its validity, and accuracy, right? And of course, the legal issues surrounding this. Okay. Many thanks once again, Seth Ajiman and Augustine Sego, who are biomedical scientists, for taking us through the basics of DNA and paternity testing. We'll bring them back again to answer some of your questions, but we cannot make legal determinations on this show.
Yes, please.
Thank you very much, Abeku Sankofi, my loyal producer, and of course you, my discerning listeners. You make it worthwhile every week. Next, we hand over to the sports team. There's a local derby, or what we call our local El Clasico. I hope I'm using the right terms. So the sports guys are coming in to give you the build-up to this match. I have been told, and I think I heard it on news, that the match has been given authorization and permission to have a fully packed stadium. Something I'll be talking about, because the UK is also winding down its own regulations, even though today I heard disturbing news that the Queen has tested positive. So yes, the sports guys are coming up with the is it El Clasico, right? The Super Clash. And so I hand over to them. Many thanks. My name is Nortey by nature. I'm out of here.
Joy 99.7 FM. Super Hits Radio. Joy